Hi, Maud. This is Ray Bone, your lobbyist. I'm here as bright Saturday morning to give you an update on the upcoming session, which begins on Monday. I got to warn you, if you hear a few strange noises this morning, I've got some friends here in the office with me, my dog and two cats. So uh, just want to give you a heads up that you may hear some strange noises in the background. But anyway, what I wanted to do is kind of begin with by giving you an overview of what the session's going to be like again this year. And it sounds like it's going to be somewhat similar to last year, to be honest with you. We we had a briefing this last week from the security people at the Capitol, Sergeant at Arms and the Capitol Security, and basically got a lowdown on what buildings are going to be we're going to be able to access and which ones we won't, and what's going to happen at the Capitol. And from that briefing, it sounds like it's going to be a little bit more open than in the last year and a half, the second part of the 20 session and all of 21 session. But anyway, it sounds as though the state office building is going to will be pretty much off limits. In fact, most of the staff, no one's even there. Hardly a legislator, I think, will go in there to their office occasionally, but other than that, the staff is all working out of their homes. They may come in for sessions as needed, but they're principally staff is working out of their residences or their offices at home. The um, this the Senate office building is more open. The first floor is open; you can get in, but you can't go any further than that unless you have um, unless there's a legislative hearing going on, which they're going to have evidently a few open hearings, hybrid hearings on the second floor of the state office building. But in wherever any of the offices are, um, you're going to have to get permission and be escorted to a legislator's office. For example, if I call and want to meet with Senator X, they're going to have to send someone down when I come into the building and take me up to Senator X's office so that I can have a personal meeting with him. Uh, Hopefully that will be very limited because, as we know, the new strain of COVID is even more contagious than the first one. So people are limiting themselves, and again, some people were wearing masks, some people are not. So you have to be somewhat careful. And it's my understanding masks will not be made mandatory either in the Capitol or in the Senate or wherever. So anyway. So I guess we just have to do the best we can if we decide to go into the Capitol to take care of ourselves. And another obstacle is the fact that um, we are going to have difficulty even meeting with individual legislators because most of them, I think more than ever, will be will be residing at home, and their office is going to be at home. And frankly, a lot of them won't even be coming to the Capitol except on occasion. So when they feel they really need to be there, they're going to be working out of their home, and the new technology, seems to be working fairly well. As one of the obstacles we ran into were the limited number of hearings and the limitation on those hearings because they couldn't last over the allotted time period because of the technology. You had 2 hours. After 2 hours, you had to get off so that the next committee could take its place. So anyway, but the technology between the what's available through the Capitol as well as the YouTube channels have helped tremendously as well. So I mean, I believe it's the session will be as difficult as in the past. Um, there's a reason they call us lobbyists, and that is that we typically seek out legislators in private spaces, lobbyists or lobbies or wherever, where we can actually seek them out and talk to them about our issues, and and without having that ability, it really does crimp your style or your effectiveness, to be very honest with you. So some of us have been around a long time. You know, it's a little easier because legislators know us and they're more apt to return our call. But if they don't want to return our calls, there's not a heck of a lot we can do about it. There has been some complaints to leadership about people not returning our calls, and I know leadership in both bodies have in the past encouraged folks to return our calls to be heard, so that we can get our messages through to them, and not only us but the general public, obviously. Hopefully, we're all learning in this new dilemma we all face, and we can make it work better. So anyway, the governor's office again is the same situation. They're not working in the governor's office either. I mean, most of those people are at home in their home offices. I've talked to the governor's office on different issues throughout the summer and fall, and those folks are basically all at home, just like everyone else. So again, people are being very, very cautious with the COVID, and you know, COVID has touched my family in a number of instances. So even with all the precautions you take, and it just seems like it's pretty pervasive. But just do the best we can. That's all we can do. The You know, as your lobbyist, our job generally, primarily, is twofold. One is to defend what you have. So in other words, if someone wants to take away our ability to do eminent domain, that's clearly something we want to advocate against. So there's the defensive posture, and then the offensive posture, which is advocate in those areas where you've told me this is what we need. And so it's my job to try to get as much of that as I can and advocate forcefully for it. And in doing that process, I get a lot of help from Emily Javins, your executive director. She's very good at the Capitol. We try to limit her time there so that she doesn't, you know, she's got to run the organization as well. But there are times when it's good to have the boss around, so to speak, and they can speak more authoritatively for Maud. I have a little advantage because being tied with the organization for so many years, I think that gives me a bit more credibility than, say, the normal lobbyist. But anyway, the Maud board determines what we work on, basically. They set the policy in terms of our legislative agenda, and they have done that again this year. Not necessarily everything people want will the Maud board adopt as something that's a high priority, because if someone once said, if everything's a high priority, then nothing's a priority. So it's the board has to make those tough decisions in terms of where do we expend our resources, and of course working for the board, we work on those topics. So anyway, I think the plan that's been outlined for this year, a couple of primary things is certainly the general fund levy. We have 10 or 12 watershed districts that really need that for capacity funding. So we're continuing to work on that. We do have an author lined up for legislation in the House. The Water Commission, which is a joint group of Senate and House legislators, one of their 15 recommendations is an increase in that general levy. So we're really starting out a bit ahead of past years. We have a bill that they drafted, which we have an author for, and whether or not, as the legislative process moves along, there may be some folks that want to change that. Right now, the bill that's drafted authorizes us a levy limit of $500,000, which is double what we've had in the past, and the 250. And of course, prior to the 250, it was 125, and prior to 125, it was 75. So anyway, we've always pretty much doubled that levy. So hopefully we can see if that doesn't work. There are other ideas that have been talked about, but we will not roll over if the legislature says, well, the 500 is too much. We've got other ideas to try to do whatever we can to give additional money to those to the watershed districts that are out there that operate under 103D and really need that additional capacity help. Um, and the other issue, of course, this is a bonding year, and the governor's already put out his bonding bill, or the parameters of his bill, and it looks like it's going to be a fairly flush bill, like 2.7 billion. And of course, everybody's feeling good about the surplus, huge surplus, 7.7 billion. I think I think it's been spent at least 5 times now. If you listen to all the press conferences that are being held. But I think to be realistic, what we're going to see is some of that money will be spent, some of it will be returned to taxpayers. The question is I believe the bonding bill will be a little larger than normal because a lot of that money can be used to pay cash for various infrastructure needs. And if you pay cash for infrastructure needs, like for example maintenance, simple maintenance, DNR's got what 100 million plus maintenance needs. Well, if they can pay cash for a large portion of that, that saves a lot of money because then you're not paying interest over the years. Even though interest rates are down, though they appear to be going up, at this point, I think it may be a good idea to spend some of that money on infrastructure and other important issues, and to pay cash for it, because in the end, that saves the taxpayers money as well. So I think we're going to see a pretty good flush bonding bill. The governor has recommended already 20 million for the flood hazard mitigation. We obviously want to get that propped up a little bit. All watershed districts, I mean, we do know what the red board requests are going to be from northwest Minnesota, but I don't know if we have a good handle yet on what other watershed districts around the state are going to be asking for. But I would hope that your watershed districts let Emily know, if you're going to be proposing being in the bonding bill, let us know so we can help you out. I mean, we do talk to a lot of people, and we can certainly advocate for all the watershed districts in the bonding bill, and we're happy to do that and want to do that. So if you have a bonding request, or you know you're going to have a bonding request, hopefully you've had it and they've come and looked at it, the committees, and let us know so we can help you. That's what we're here for, and the bonding bill is going to take some time, and we're going to be spending time watching what's going on, and if we can put in the good word for your project as well. But we can't do that if we don't know about it. So you need to let us know what's going on so we can help you. But that's another issue, and we talked a little bit about capacity funding. We are concerned with the continued use of what we think should be watershed clean water fund, watershed implementation money for capacity funding. We think that it shouldn't be used for that purpose, and I think it's time maybe to start pushing back a little more on that. And that money should be coming out of the general fund. If the legislature wants the SWCDs and wants other entities to, frankly, do that work, then someone's got to fund them, and it shouldn't come out of that clean water fund. It was never intended for that purpose, I do not believe. If you look at the statute and look at somebody who worked on that. So anyway, that's an issue that's becoming more and more critical all the time. And then another issue is we're concerned about some activities at Bowser and how they're developing their policy as it relates to watershed implementation. We believe with recent policy they established in the metro area, they're actually moving away from watershed-based funding, planning and implementation funding is what I should say. And that's of great concern because, as you know, the Water Roundtable, Local Government Water Roundtable, a number of years ago, developed and pushed for watershed-based management. And now, once it's established, put in statute, it looks like Bowser is walking away from that to some degree. We We do not approve of that. We think that's absolutely the wrong approach, and we agree with what our initial recommendation was. And I don't see why we can't make that work in the metro area. We think it's, that we use the present structure we have instead of setting up another plan, another structure, which seems to us like it's really out of bounds as it relates to watershed-based funding. We're just going backwards, and it doesn't make any sense to us. And we are pursuing that, by the way, with the Bowser board, and hopefully we can come to some agreement. And frankly, when you make our argument is when you make that kind of policy changes, those should be done by rulemaking, not by policy change. I know I've run a couple of state agencies and state government over the years in my past career, and I was told very clearly by the lawyers from the Attorney General's office who worked with my agencies that there's only two things: there's laws and there's rules. If you adopt policy, policy just doesn't have the force and effect of rules and statute. So, we need to be looking at that concept and that reality, frankly, because nothing's changed since then. And we're getting a little bit too far out on policy making versus actually developing a strong set of rules so that everybody knows what the rules of the game are. That's why you have them. You do it for transparency. This other policy making, I don't believe, gives us the kind of transparency that should be afforded to the different local governments. So anyway, one other issue that there's a number of other issues that we'll be watching. Watching legislation that may be out there that we think goes against our philosophies and frankly tries to take some of our authority away. We will be obviously watching them and monitoring and watching new legislation that's coming in the door, and every day, we're going to be flooded with more legislation. I think with everybody being in their home office, they've spent a lot more time sitting around thinking of things that should be done. So we're seeing a lot of legislative issues. Fortunately, in some ways, it's the one good thing of all this. It limits what can be heard and what kind of issues are discussed. But then when you're limiting hearing of bills, then you see those later on as amendments to omnibus bills. So one way or another, it seems like you have to talk about them. One other issue is the salt application issue. I know a lot of watershed districts are involved in that and through their own policies and rules, and it is of interest. I think most people agree that that's a really good idea. The problem is by using the tort liability issue as a way to kind of enforce that, it really becomes much more problematic, because then you got the lawyers involved, and the lawyers are opposed to that, and they have a very strong lobbying force at the Capitol. So they've been able to stymie the final passage of anything. So if we could figure out a solution to that, I know that we have heard the Center for Environmental Advocacy this year is going to be taking the lead on that bill and pushing it, because I think some of the other folks who have pushed it in the past have kind of given up on it, or not given up, they've just run out of gas or whatever. They just decided that they can't put any more time into it. So we'll be working. We know the people for environmental advocacy, and we'll be letting them know that let us know if there's anything we can do to help. So we'll be working on that, because again, it's an important issue, and we know that. So anything we can do to assist them, we will. So with that, that's kind of a preliminary thoughts on this upcoming session. As a long-time lobbyist in government and out of government, it's really a difficult period, because it's hard to get the kind of transparency that we all have striven for over the years, and it's hard to get your advocacy through when you have limits like that, like are imposed because of this this pandemic. So hopefully, hopefully this is the last year we're going to have to put up with this, and hopefully we can get our message across, and we can prevent anything bad happening to us. And I think we can. We did it last year. We'll do it again this year. It just is. I have to admit, in talking to a lot of the old time lobbyists, there's a lot of frustration about being put in this position. But that's the hand we've been dealt. So we just have to deal with it and dig in and do what's necessary. So with that, I'm going to sign off, and I guess we're going to be making periodic updates, video, as well as newsletter type debate updates. So watch for them, and hopefully you take the time to learn what we're doing and what the important issues are. And when we ask you to do something, please respond to us. That's extremely important, because in the end, you folks are your own best lobbyists, to be honest with you, and your legislators will listen to you. I can perk their interest and I can tell them this is what you think, but if they hear it from you firsthand, there is nothing better than that. So with that, I'm going to end and wish you all a safe and happy month of February, and take care of yourself and be careful with COVID. Thank you.